If you feel like you struggle with being overly emotionally attached when you are dating or when you're in a relationship, like I personally have struggled with for just about my entire life, and I am 29 years old now, then this video is definitely for you because we're going to be talking about how to master the art of detachment, specifically when it comes to dating. And I looked up the term emotional detachment, and it is considered a negative psychological condition where you are unable to connect with other people emotionally. That is not what I am referring to in today's video. What I am referring to when I say emotional detachment is still being able to connect with your partner or your loved ones emotionally. We don't want to get rid of that aspect of you. That's such a beautiful part of being human and human connection. That's not what we're referring to, but we are referring to not being overly controlled by your emotions, specifically your negative emotions, so that you can actually show up in your most authentic way, in your most, as your most authentic self when you are dating, when you're in relationships, and not being controlled by fear or past hurts or trauma. Because we all have had a past, and that affects how we show up in our relationships now. And learning how to separate the past traumas and the past triggers and seeing them for what it is when it comes up, when you feel that fear, seeing it and experiencing it and not pushing it away or pretending like it doesn't exist or resisting it, but seeing it for what it is, getting curious about why it's there, and learning how to take a step back from that emotion and not immediately react on that emotion. Because oftentimes, when we are reactive and we are unable to detach from those negative emotions specifically, we often say or do things that we then regret later. And so, if you feel like you constantly find yourself in that situation where you're wondering, why did I say that? Why did I do that? I regret that, then this video is going to help you, because it's going to help you take a step back and see your emotions for what they really are, not see them as truth necessarily, understand why they are happening and how to move through them so that you can develop positive, healthy, and authentic relationships. So I have written down 5 tips slash mindset shifts that I have implemented and utilized in my own personal life, both just dating and life in general, that have changed my mental health, my overall just experience when it comes to dating, when it comes to just, and honestly, any relationship with my parents, with my friends, when I'm dating somebody, it has completely changed my experience in the most positive way. And I truly hope that these tips help you. Okay, so let's get into it. Mindset number one is, and I remind myself this every day, every morning. Every morning, this is an affirmation and a mantra that I tell myself over and over and over again so that I can rewire the belief in my mind that says that being liked is the most important thing in the world. Because I was a former people pleaser, and I truly believe that being liked was the most important thing in my life, and that if someone didn't like me, it was the end of the world. So the new affirmation that I had to rewire in my mind, which helped me master the art of emotional detachment, is that being authentic is so much more important than being liked or approved of. And something that I always remind myself with that is will I will, without a doubt, always regret prioritizing people liking and approving of me than prioritizing being my most true and authentic self. I will always regret it. And honestly, picturing myself on my deathbed and picturing that with such vivid imagery is actually very helpful and reminding me that in the moment when I am scared to be my authentic self and that fear comes up, I picture myself on my deathbed having the regrets of the things that I wish I said, the things I wish I did, and that the fear of having those strong regrets on my deathbed surpasses the current fear that I'm experiencing of being scared to be my authentic self. And that helps motivate me to say and do things that are true to my authentic self, even when I'm scared to, even when I feel like it may garner criticism or a negative reaction from this person. I remind myself of me picturing myself on my deathbed, having those regrets, wishing I said and did the things that truly were on my heart. And that helps push me to say what I need to say and do what I want to do when it comes to my relationships, even though in the moment it does feel scary and I feel that anxiety come up. Another reminder is, and another affirmation and mantra that I tell myself every day is, I will never regret being my most authentic and true self. And I'm telling you right now, you will never regret being your authentic and true self. You will never regret it. You will regret not being true to who you were. And that's such a huge regret for so many of us women who do tend to prioritize other people's needs above our own. Okay. And so what I also want to say when it comes to being your most authentic and true self is there is a slight nuance that I want to bring up, which is being your most authentic and true self doesn't mean that you can be or that you should be mean or rude to people because that's just what you felt like. That and if you struggle with people pleasing, I honestly don't think that's probably ever anything you're going to struggle with because you're so on the spectrum of being overly nice that I'm not even worried about that for you. But I do want to say that because I have found myself in this trap where I'm thinking, oh, well, I don't feel like talking to somebody and I don't feel like, being nice. That doesn't mean, it's a reminder for myself, that doesn't mean that I can be or should be rude. Okay. I can express how I feel. Like, let's say I'm in an Uber and the Uber driver, I feel like I've used this example before, but let's say the Uber driver wants to talk to me and I don't feel like talking. My most authentic self doesn't feel like talking, right? My old people pleasing self who wants to be liked would entertain the conversation because being liked is more important than being authentic. Okay. Well, if I'm being if I'm being true to my most authentic self, I don't need to entertain the conversation because I'm scared of being disliked, but I also don't need to be rude and I don't need to be rude. So instead I can say, "Hey, I appreciate you wanting to have a conversation right now, but I'm really tired and I don't feel like talking." So I can tell the person how I feel in a way that is still respectful and kind. So that is a caveat or a nuance that I wanted to bring up where it is so important to be your most authentic self, be your true self, express how you feel, express your opinions, express what you appreciate and your own needs, but you can always do it in a way that's kind and respectful. And again, this is a reminder that I have to give myself because I am so much on my journey of overcoming people pleasing. And what I've noticed is that as a former people pleaser who just wanted everyone to like me and I was overly nice, I definitely swung a little bit too far in the other direction where I was overcompensating for wanting to not no longer be a nice girl, that I started being a bit rude. And that that is not my desire. I don't want to be rude. I'm not here to be rude to people, to be mean. That is not who I am at my core. I deeply care about people. I just also am learning how to assert my needs and boundaries in a way that is kind and respectful. So, long story short, mindset number one is the reminder that being authentic is so much more important than being liked. But you can always be authentic in a way that is kind and respectful. It's all about how you communicate and the tone that you communicate with. Number two, the second reminder, especially when it comes for me, when I am dating and I am getting excited about a person, which is nothing wrong with that. I think that's such a beautiful part of the dating journey. But something that helps me not overly attached to this person and make and put them on a pedestal and make them my everything is I remind myself that I was great before this person and I will be great after them if things end. I will be great with or without this person. And that is such an important reminder to have, because we often don't realize that so much of the importance and value, overvaluing that we are giving this person, is thinking that without this person, we are not going to be okay, that life is just going to be terrible, that we can't go on anymore, forgetting that we had a life, a great life, hopefully, before this person. And so, yes, as amazing as I'm sure this person is and the value that they bring to my life, which I so see and love and appreciate, I will be okay. I will still be great with or without this person. And yes, if they decide to leave or things end for whatever reason, of course, it is going to hurt. Of course, it's going to be painful initially, but I trust myself that I can pick myself back up, that I can create a life. I have created a life that is amazing, that is filled with so much joy and love and filled with my purpose and passion. So whether I am with or without this person, I will be okay. And that helps take a lot of the emotional charge, the negative emotional charge when that happens, when I feel that I am scared to be my authentic self. I am scared to communicate my needs. Because if I communicate my needs, well, what if this person decides that that doesn't match what they want in a relationship and they leave me? I was great with before this person and I will be great without them. But if I don't communicate my needs, who will? This person's not a mind reader. I can't just expect them to know what my needs are. I have to communicate them, and understanding that my needs may not be something that they can meet. And that may mean that our relationship can end. And that is absolutely terrifying, but, and sad. Yes, sure. But I was great before this person and I will be great without them. And such a, just a big part of where I feel so many of us women go wrong in relationships, especially as people pleasers, is we don't communicate our needs. We are just there to make the other person happy. And it feels good in the short term because we see that what we're doing is making them happy and it makes us feel valuable and important. But in the long run, we realize that we're not getting any of our needs met. And it has to be a two-way street where both of you guys are getting your needs met for the most part. Obviously, it waxes and wanes. We're human. We go through ups and downs, but We want both partners to get their needs met. It can't just be one sided. And so if you struggle with people pleasing like I used to, you maybe just be somebody who really puts their value in being a giver, but then years, months down the road, you realize none of your needs are getting met. You feel unfulfilled. You feel unhappy. You feel resentful. And so it's that's why it's so important to remind yourself that you have to be your authentic self, which includes communicating your needs. And in order to do that, you have to remind yourself that you were great before this person and you will be great without them. So when you feel that fear come up and you have the reminder, I was great before this person, I'll be great without after them, it helps you embody and practice a level of emotional detachment because you're not seeing and feeling the fear and believing it and blindly following the fear that says, don't communicate your needs, don't be yourself, just make this person like you. And you're like, okay, great, that's just what I'm going to do. No, you see the fear for what it is. And the fear is you're scared that you're not going to be okay without this person. But then you remind yourself, no, I will be okay without this person. Again, yes, it is going to be painful initially, and that's okay. I I'm strong. I have a support system. I have my friends, my family, my loved ones, whoever, my coworkers, whoever you have. I have me, you have yourself, and you will be okay. You've gone through hard things before. You've picked yourself up from tough situations in the past, and you will do it again. Number 3. So when you are triggered in a negative way, you want to allow your emotions to be there. Don't resist them. Don't shame them. You're human. It's okay. We all have negative emotions. We all get triggered. Allow your emotions to be there, but watch them. Watch them like a movie, like a TV show. Watch your emotions and the thoughts that come up with your emotions with curiosity. With curiosity. Okay. And wait until the triggered feeling, that strong emotion, wait until that calms down. You know, when you get triggered and you feel your mind is spiraling and your body is on fire inside. Okay, you want to wait until all of that calms down before responding. Okay, before deciding what you're going to say and what you're going to do. I highly recommend that you do your very best to not respond immediately, not react immediately when you feel that trigger, because those triggers really cloud our judgment and often leads us to saying and do things that we then regret later. For me, I am a deeply emotional person, and I think it's comical because I remember having a conversation with one of my nutrition and fitness coaching clients, and I was telling her because she's also very emotional and she feels things passionately and intensely, just like I do. But she expresses it more outwardly. And I feel my emotions more inwardly. And so I was telling her how I I feel things very strongly and deeply, and she was shocked. She was she was shocked. She said, "You seem like the calmest person, like you never struggle with your emotions, and that you always have it together." And I told her that I feel everything on the inside. And I mean, somebody could be burning off my fingers and I wouldn't show it in my face. On the inside, I would be experiencing a tremendous amount of pain, but I would not show it because I have not always been this way. I have learned this in probably in the last few years where I've learned that I am a deeply emotional and passionate person. I feel everything, positive and negative, very deeply. It consumes my body. And I have learned that especially when it's a negative emotion, but it could even be positive. When it is a negative emotion that I'm experiencing, it is vital that I just sit with that emotion and observe it with curiosity, like a movie, until it passes. And it it can take for me days, days for that negative emotion to pass through my body. And if you have never tried or committed to meditation, I highly recommend it because this is essentially meditation where you are observing yourself and you're not responding or reacting to your emotions and your feelings. So this is essentially a form of meditation that I've learned how to do when I experience strongly negative emotions, to just sit and observe the emotion. I understand that something is triggered in me, and whatever thoughts that are coming up from the emotional trigger are often not the real truth. The thoughts will still come up, but I just notice them rather than hearing the thought and thinking, oh, that must be true. It's like if you were to watch a YouTube video and somebody's giving you advice, instead of hearing it and going, oh, okay, they said it, it's true. You hear it and you go, okay, I'm hearing this advice. Does this actually make sense with the evidence that I have in front of me? What is the evidence that I have in front of me? Giving yourself some space from what has been said and not following it blindly. And so when I have that negative emotion, I have learned that my mind and the thoughts it is absolute chaos in my brain. And so I will just allow myself and actually force myself to not respond, not say anything, not do anything until that emotion passes. Because very rarely am I going to feel a negative trigger and be able to respond rationally. And if you, like, let's say you're having a conversation with your partner and they have triggered something in you and you don't, you're in a conversation and you obviously want to be able to explain to them or give them something without just being triggered, leaving the room and holding yourself up for 3 days and your partner's going, what happened? Where's the conversation? Where's the communication? So if you find yourself getting triggered, let's say you're in the heat of the moment and you feel yourself wanting to say or do something out of that trigger, what I want you to do is you're going to take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth, and you're going to communicate with your partner. And you can write down. Actually, I recommend that you write down what you're going to say in the heat of the moment when you feel triggered so that you have a go-to when your mind feels jumbled and chaotic. But you're going to essentially communicate with your partner and say, hey, I'm feeling very emotionally triggered from this conversation right now. And I don't feel that I'm in the right headspace to continue this conversation in a calm and rational manner. So I would like to ask for space. You can give them a certain amount of time if you feel they need that. I would like to ask for the next 12 hours to collect myself, calm myself down, and get clarity on the situation before I can continue to communicate with you or continue this conversation, because I don't want to say anything that I don't truly mean and will regret just because I'm in the heat of the conversation or this moment or these emotions. So you can rewind and write down a form of what I just said so that when you feel that emotional trigger with your partner, you can say something along those lines so that you do not say something that you regret. Because I will say that if you do tend to be very emotionally heightened and triggered easily, you can't take words back. And once, I mean, depending on who your partner is, hopefully they're very forgiving, but you can't take words back. And once you say something that you didn't truly mean, that sits with your partner forever. So it's highly important that you give yourself that time and space to observe your emotions and not react in the heat of the moment so that you can respond in a way that truly communicates how you actually feel in a way that doesn't blame the other person, but just expresses how you feel, what you need. And then you can also open up the conversation and ask them, hey, so this is how I feel. What are your thoughts? Am I seeing the situation in a way that is not truly the actuality of the situation? Am I misreading anything? And ask them for their opinion so they know that their voice is also being heard. I I feel like I just gave you bits of art of emotional detachment, but also tips for communicating. But they they go hand in hand. All right. So I hope you found that helpful. But something that I have learned how to master. I, if you could if you could jump into my mind and body and really see how strongly and deeply I feel emotions, I don't know if you'd be shocked, but I think a lot of people would be shocked because I have learned how to maintain a cool and calm composure through a lot of practice. But I am incredibly, incredibly emotional and passionate and intense. And it does serve me well in so many ways because I pour myself into my career, into my clients because I love and am so passionate about everything I do and teach, but it's just when I experience pain, fear of vulnerability, um, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, when those emotions come up, I have to be so cognizant and so aware of the triggers and work through them and not react to the fears. And that's something I've really had to work on with myself. And I believe a big part of people pleasing is we are scared of rejection and abandonment. Perhaps we were abandoned and rejected when we were younger. So now we overextend ourselves so that people do not leave us. Because if we are so valuable to them and make them happy, then they will not leave us. And so overcoming and working through that fear of abandonment and rejection, coming back to, I have got me and I will be okay. And I will create an amazing life for myself with or without this person. That's such a foundational belief that we all need to have in order to implement the things that I'm talking about. All right, number 4 is understanding that you are the only one responsible for your emotions, the only one responsible for your emotions. And equally, the person you're communicating with, are the only one, is the only one that's responsible for their own emotions. Okay. So you're responsible for yours. You're not expecting your partner to fix it, but you also understand that your partner is responsible for their emotions. So if you need to say something that is in a kind and respectful way that is authentic to you, that might trigger them, you understand and you give them the responsibility for managing their own emotions rather than you taking on that responsibility yourself. Okay. So you, at the end of the day, can and should communicate your needs in a kind and respectful way. Yes. But also understand that your partner does not have to not necessarily respect those needs, but they don't have to they can say, hey, I hear your needs and I see your needs, but that doesn't align with who I want to be in a relationship. And this may not be a good fit, right? So at the end of the day, why these two go hand in hand is because when you communicate your needs, right, you understand you are not making this person responsible for your emotions. You're not saying, well, if you do or don't do this, it makes me like you're making me feel this way. They don't have to do anything. Okay. You are responsible for how you feel. And part of that is communicating your needs because you don't want to resent them later because you didn't communicate your needs, right? But you also understand that you are all if you're scared to communicate your needs, you are allowed to communicate your needs and understand that it also may trigger the other person, assuming you did it in a kind and respectful way. It may trigger the other person and they may feel negatively towards you because you communicated a need that wasn't in alignment with them. They may get triggered and you understand that you are not responsible for their emotions. And so when you just remind yourself that you are responsible for your emotions, you're not putting that responsibility on your partner, but you also understand that your partner is responsible for their own emotions, that helps you practice a level of emotional detachment because you are not taking on that responsibility, which adds more stress and fear to your life. And again, this can apply not just to romantic relationships, but with your parents and with your friends. This is something that I use with everybody in my life where I'm constantly just reminding myself to show up authentically me every day because again for like 28 years of my life I didn't even know who authentic me was, and I was so ingrained in the habit of not being my authentic self, being who I thought this person wanted me to be. So I have to constantly and consistently remind myself every day to show up as my authentic self. And I use this with every relationship that I have, with my mom, with my dad, with my brother, with my girlfriends, with my clients, with every single person in my life. Every single person in my life. I remind myself of this. Okay. Last but not least, number 5 is I want you to ask yourself, do you want to feel good right now and feel bad later? Or do you want to feel bad right now, but feel so good later? It's the battle of immediate gratification versus long term gratification. And I'm telling you right now, long term gratification is so much better and always more fulfilling than short term gratification. And so, what does this mean? When we choose to people please, to not be our authentic selves, to take responsibility for other people's emotions, all of this feels good in the short term. Okay. All of it feels good when we are choosing to make the other person happy, to betray our authentic self. We get the short term gratification of them approving us and liking us, and there being no conflict in the relationship. That feels good right now today because we don't want to feel that pain, that anxiety, that stress right now. But it always hurts us long term because, again, the resentment builds up. You realize your values don't actually align. You just didn't realize that because you didn't even ask yourself what your value was. And now you're in a 5-10 year relationship or marriage that you are so unhappy in because you didn't actually ask yourself what your needs were. You were just so scared of this person abandoning you and not liking you that you changed everything about yourself and who you were to please them. So short term, you feel great. You avoid conflict. They like you. It's all good. But long term, you feel so much worse versus short term, you feel bad because you communicated your needs. You triggered this person. You said something that was authentic to you that they didn't like. It hurts. It doesn't feel good in that moment. You don't like conflict. I don't either. I know. Trust me. I know. Okay. It hurts in the moment, but in the long run, you save yourself from being in a relationship for 5 to 10 years where you weren't your authentic self, you didn't get your needs met, you don't even like this person, you just want them to like you, and you save yourself from a divorce, from a having kids with someone you don't even like, you save yourself so much pain in the long run. So understand that this is a battle of short-term versus long-term gratifications. Always pick the long term. Always pick the long term. And the long term means being your authentic self, saying and doing things that are true to you in a kind and respectful way, even when it feels hard, even when you know it's going to trigger this other person or push them away or cause a breakup. Because in the long run, you're going to be so thankful. And you are going to thank yourself so much that you did not stay stuck in a relationship that didn't serve your highest self. All right. That's all I got for you today. Whenever I do these videos, it is monumentally healing for myself. I just being able to speak it out loud, so a lot of people like therapies because even just being able to talk out how you feel, it is very therapeutic, and it also helps you clarify your own thoughts and beliefs. And so I, number one, I hope you get as much value out of these videos as I do, but I can't even tell you how healing doing these videos are for me. It is truly, it gives me so much life and so much joy to do these videos. And I'm so thankful that I get to do what I love and what I'm passionate about every single day. I know a lot of people can't say that. And I am just so eternally grateful for you, for me, for all of this, for God. I am so grateful, and my heart is so full and happy right now. And I'm about to go murder my leg day at the gym. So wish me luck. And if you have any video requests from me that you want me to talk about, please leave them in the comments below. And otherwise, I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.